You know, when most of us think about growing up rich, we picture the obvious stuff, right? Trust funds, fancy cars, basically just inheriting a lot of money. That seems like the big advantage. But what if that's just scratching the surface? What if the real edge isn't the cash itself, but something deeper, like a totally different mindset, a set of lessons they learn really early on? Today, that's exactly what we're doing a deep dive into. We're looking at these unique principles and habits that parents, especially those who've built wealth themselves, pass down. It's the kind of wisdom that seems to set kids up for success, no matter what their starting bank balance is. It's really fascinating stuff, foundational ideas about building a life, not just getting rich.
Yeah, and what's really compelling, looking at our source material like Wealthy Parents, 12 Lessons for Success, is that these aren't just vague ideas. They're really specific, actionable lessons, things that fundamentally change how you look at the world, how you deal with money, how you grow. It's like a practical playbook, not just philosophy.
Exactly. So, our mission today is to pull out the key takeaways from these 12 lessons. We want to help you see how these core ideas might apply in your own life, moving beyond just, earning to actually building something meaningful. So, let's start where maybe a lot of families struggle just talking about money. Okay, this is where it gets really interesting. How do these parents change the whole conversation about money for their kids? Because for so many families, money's this, like, hush hush topic, right? It's stressful. Maybe it's the root of all evil or just something you don't talk about openly. But these parents, they frame it completely differently. They teach their kids, look, money is a tool. It's neutral. It helps you navigate life, exchange value, solve problems. And having that positive sort of pragmatic view, it empowers kids. They start understanding budgets or the link between, say, doing a job and getting paid for the value, and they get it young. It strips away the fear.
That initial reframing is, well, it's absolutely crucial. It sets a totally different psychological baseline. Money shifts from being a source of anxiety, maybe something to avoid thinking about, to being a resource, something you can manage, understand, maybe even use for good things. Just imagine growing up, seeing money not as this big, scary thing, but just another tool in your toolbox. It gives you a sense of control, right? Not shame or avoidance. They might even involve kids in, say, planning a family trip budget. Simple stuff, but it shows that direct link. Choices have financial outcomes.
That makes total sense. And building right on that idea of understanding money, one of the absolute core lessons they drill down on is assets versus liabilities. And it's more than just jargon, isn't it? It's like a mental filter for looking at, well, everything. A lot of adults never quite get this, but these parents are crystal clear. Assets put money into your pocket, liabilities take money out. They might point to a rental property they own and say, see, the rent coming in, that's an asset working.
Yeah.
Then contrast it with, say, a brand new luxury car. That, they'll explain, is a liability. It costs money every month, payments, insurance, gas, and it's losing value. Getting that difference hammered home early with real examples, it's just a game changer for how you think about spending and building wealth.
And that really brings up a key question for anyone listening, doesn't it? When you spend your money, is it going towards things that will eventually make you more money? Or is it mostly going towards things that just cost you money month after month, year after year? It sounds simple, but it's amazing how often we overlook that distinction in just our everyday habits. Understanding this isn't just Finance 101. It's about learning to see what actually builds long-term value versus what just gives you a temporary buzz.
Okay, so if they reframe money and teach assets versus liabilities, how does that change how they look at something like debt? Because most people just hear debt and think bad, avoid. But it sounds like these parents teach a more nuanced view. They actually distinguish between bad debt and good debt. Bad debt is borrowing for stuff that loses value, like that fancy car we mentioned, or maybe designer clothes that are worth less the second you buy them. Good debt, that's different. That's borrowing strategically, using leverage to buy assets that are expected to generate more money than the debt costs. Things like maybe a well-researched investment property or funding a business idea that has real potential. And they understand banks are usually much more willing to lend for that kind of good debt because they see a clear path to getting paid back, plus profit. It's about using leverage smartly.
Exactly. And the really deep insight there is that sophisticated understanding of leverage. It's not necessarily about never having debt. Sometimes avoiding debt can actually limit your growth potential. Instead, it's about understanding the purpose of the debt. Is it going to help you acquire something that grows in value or produces income? Or is it just for consumption, for something that depreciates? Wealthy families teach their kids to ask those questions. Okay, does this loan have a realistic path to earning more than it costs? What's the actual risk involved here? Calculated risk. WIPA, That just transforms how you see borrowing. It goes from being this heavy burden to maybe a strategic tool you can use carefully after doing your homework. It forces discipline.
Right. So you've got this foundation, money's a tool, know your assets from your liabilities, use debt intelligently. The next piece is clearly the mindset needed to actually generate wealth. It's shifting gears from just managing money to actively making more. So, how do these parents get their kids thinking bigger than just, earning a salary?
Well, a really core principle seems to be work for something bigger than just the paycheck itself. Most of us are kind of conditioned into trading time for money, right? You work X hours, you get paid Y amount, simple transaction. But the wealthy often teach their kids that ultimately you want your money working for you. They encourage thinking about passive income streams, things like building systems, investing in businesses, maybe getting dividends or rent, even if it starts small. It's about cultivating that habit of wealth growing over time from things like investments or intellectual property, not just earning and then spending it all.
Yeah, that directly challenges that whole time for money trap that, let's face it, most people are stuck in. It's all about leverage again, isn't it? Making sure your efforts or your capital keep generating value even when you're not actively working on that specific thing. It allows your resources to multiply, hopefully, separate from your direct hourly input. It's like building a money-making machine instead of just being a cog in one. Think about a kid actually seeing their parents get a check from rental property bought years ago. That makes the principle really tangible.
And tied right into that is lesson 4. Raise your expectations and then work like heck to meet them. It's kind of the opposite of what many people do, which is lowering goals to fit their current reality. Well, that's a coping mechanism, I guess. But these parents encourage setting really high goals, financially and otherwise, ambitious goals, and then figuring out the strategy and putting in the work to hit them. This often means taking calculated risks, stepping outside the comfort zone for potentially much bigger rewards. They seem to understand there's often less competition and more opportunity at the top, precisely because fewer people aim that high or push that hard.
It absolutely encourages a growth mindset, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Rather than a scarcity mindset where you're just trying to protect what little you have. It's rooted in understanding that big rewards often require big but smart ambition, calculated ambition. It builds resilience, too, teaching kids to see setbacks not as game over, but as feedback. Data to help them adjust their approach for the next try. Aim high.
Okay. Building on that idea of ambition and looking for bigger plays, the source material has this really powerful principle: solve big problems to get rich. And it suggests real wealth doesn't just come from having a job, but from actually providing significant solutions to complex issues out there in the world. Can you unpack that a bit? How do they nurture that kind of thinking?
Yeah, this is a huge shift. It moves the focus from just getting a good job towards creating massive value or making a real difference.
Yeah.
It really fosters an entrepreneurial spirit, often from quite young, encouraging kids to be observers, to spot problems, inefficiencies, unmet needs, and then think about scalable solutions. And we're not just talking small fixes. We're talking about identifying big gaps in the market or ways to improve systems or creating something entirely new that people genuinely need. The primary driver isn't just personal gain, although that can be a result. It's more about the value you create for others, for society. A kid might be encouraged to look at problems in their own community and brainstorm ways a business could help fix them. It connects need with innovation.
That's a really powerful way to frame it, shifting from scarcity to abundance thinking. But I imagine for a lot of people listening, the idea of radically increasing income feels, well, daunting, especially if you feel stressed already. How do these parents practically teach kids to find and go after those income boosting opportunities? Not just wish for more money, but actually build those skills, maybe even starting small.
That's a really practical point. And yes, it's a major strategic shift. They understand that while, sure, managing expenses matters, spending all your energy on pinching pennies is limiting. There's only so much you can cut, right? So they teach kids to focus on creating more value. How? By developing skills that are in high demand. By spotting niche markets others overlook. By figuring out how to offer unique solutions that people will pay more for. It's not just about asking for a raise in a job. It's about flexing that entrepreneurial muscle. Maybe starting a small side hustle, doing some freelance work. Something where you directly see the connection. The more value I provide, the more income I can generate. And the goal isn't just more income for its own sake, but having enough significant cash left over to save, invest, and actually enjoy life, rather than feeling constantly deprived.
That really is a profound shift in strategy. Okay, let's pivot now towards building capital beyond just money, personal and social capital, because it's clearly not just about financial literacy or mindset. It's also about who you become as a person and the network you build. So how does this translate into being a more valuable individual? Well, lesson 6 hits this directly. Knowledge is a long-term investment. They teach that what you know, the skills you have and keep developing, that's actually more valuable than any lump sum of money. So, rich parents often really push constant learning, self improvement. The idea is the more valuable you make yourself to the world through deep expertise, unique skills, creative ideas, the more opportunities will naturally come your way to create wealth. Mastering something takes real effort, practice, dedication, but that mastery is an investment in yourself that pays off consistently no matter what the economy is doing. They might push kids to go deep on subjects, not just for the grade, but for true understanding and problem solving ability.
That teaches such a fundamental truth. Your greatest asset is you. Your ability to learn, adapt, and grow. Continuous learning isn't just a nice-to-have hobby, it's a core strategy. It's investing in your future earning power, your resilience in a fast-changing world, and your ability to spot and seize opportunities others miss. It's about building this amazing mental toolkit that prepares you for whatever comes next. Education doesn't end with school. It's a lifelong process of adding new tools.
And right alongside that personal development, they stress lesson 7. Be sociable and build your network early. Social skills, they understand, are a massive asset. Wealthy parents seem to get the importance of early socialization, sometimes pushing it even before kids hit 4 years old. They know that strong, real relationships aren't just pleasant. They create this kind of snowball effect over a lifetime. Good connections lead to better opportunities, wider networks for help and collaboration, and honestly, just a richer life. They teach that building relationships is just as vital as building technical skills or a bank account. The deep insight there is seeing human connection itself as capital social capital. Building those meaningful relationships isn't just about being polite, it's fundamental. It's how you access information, find opportunities, get support, collaborate on big projects. It opens doors you might not even know exist, and it builds a safety net of people you trust. So they might really encourage kids to join clubs, volunteer, learn how to listen actively, be genuinely curious about others. They understand those are the building blocks of a powerful, supportive network.
Okay, now let's tackle what might seem like a contradiction, but it's crucial. Lesson 8 is not entitled to anything, despite your advantages. Even with all the privilege, wealthy parents often hammer home that success is absolutely not guaranteed. They make it clear that inherited money only gets you so far. And that feeling entitled, that's like poison to ambition. It's a fast track to failure. Their kids are taught that real achievement comes from their own effort, their own hard work, constant growth, and a solid work ethic. You have to earn your place, basically. Sustained effort is the real currency. And that really forces a focus on personal responsibility, doesn't it? No matter where you start from. It teaches humility, grit, and the understanding that genuine success is built through consistent contribution, not just handed over or expected. It fosters self-reliance, prevents the potential downsides of privilege by making sure kids develop that strong internal belief that their actions drive their outcomes.
Okay, so we have the mindsets, the importance of personal and social growth. Let's shift to execution, the practical side. Because knowing isn't enough, it's about what you consistently do. Lesson 11 really speaks to this. Habits shape your life. Wealthy parents seem to deeply understand the power of consistent, positive daily routines. Whether it's making time to read, committing to exercise, keeping track of finances, even just planning out the day. These habits, compounded over time, create huge advantages, and often they lead by example, right? Kids absorb more by watching what their parents do consistently than just by listening to lectures. It's about that compound effect, small, deliberate actions adding up over years to build a really strong foundation.
It absolutely highlights that compound effect. Small, consistent actions adding up over time. It's like building a solid operating system for your life. Productive behaviors become more automatic. That reduces the mental energy spent on deciding and just keeps you moving toward your goals consistently. They might set up family routines around learning or exercise or even quick financial check-ins. Teaching discipline not as a punishment, but as the path to getting more freedom and achieving more. It's about making sustained effort feel normal.
And the final piece of this puzzle, lesson 12. The 80-20 rule applies to everything. The Pareto principle. Wealthy parents often apply this idea that roughly 80% of your results come from just 20% of your efforts. They use this in life. They might recognize that, say, obsessing over getting that grade from 95% to 98% might not be worth the huge amount of extra time and stress, especially if that time could be better spent gaining real-world experience, learning a practical skill, or building connections. So they prioritize. They focus energy where it makes the biggest difference, on real-world learning and trying things out, rather than getting stuck chasing perfection where the returns diminish.
Yeah, if you connect that to the big picture, It's all about strategically allocating your most limited resources,
Hmm.
your time and energy. It encourages prioritizing impact over just being busy or being perfect. Developing that sense of where your efforts truly yield the most significant results is a really pragmatic approach to being effective. Teaching kids to ask, okay, what's the 20% of stuff I could do that will get me 80% of the results I actually care about? That lets them be efficient and impactful.
So, wrapping this all up, what's the big takeaway for you listening? We've gone through 12 really powerful lessons today, and they show that the real secret sauce for lasting success often isn't the inherited cash. It's more about cultivating a specific mindset, taking strategic action, committing to lifelong growth, and focusing relentlessly on creating real value. And these aren't just abstract concepts for the super rich. They're actionable principles, powerful ways of thinking, and practical habits anyone can start to adopt.
Absolutely. These are fundamentally universal principles for building a life with purpose. And yes, prosperity too. They're accessible. Anyone willing to learn, to adapt their thinking, and to consistently apply these ideas can benefit no matter their starting point. It really comes down to making conscious choices. Choices about how you see money, how you grow, how you connect, and how you execute.
So, as you think about everything we've discussed, here's a final thought. Which one of these 12 lessons feels like the biggest challenge for you to adopt right now? And maybe more importantly, what's just one small, concrete step you could take this week? Just one thing to start putting that particular lesson into practice. Maybe it's just how you talk about money at home. Maybe it's researching one good debt opportunity. Maybe it's setting aside an hour to learn something new. Keep exploring, keep learning, and definitely keep asking those big questions. Thanks so much for taking this deep dive with us today.